The underdogs fumbled the bag badly this week on the challenge. I'm John Chidley Hill,
And I am Sheldon Alexander.
and this is You Killed It, the podcast talking about the challenge. It is episode 13 of this season.
Cheers.
Thank you to our fans for giving us an extra day. We had a little hiccup, a little snafu with the
Well,
PBRs this week.
to get us behind the scenes in terms of what really happened, I get a message from friend of the show, friend of real life, Mr. Lawrence Thomas, on Wednesday night while I'm watching the Raptors game, one of the craziest games I've ever seen, which is a story for another day. And he just said, "Hey, check your PVR because they're trying to watch the challenge right now, and the PVRs are all messed up." And for whatever, I guess MTV's been showing marathons of the challenge over the holidays here in Canada.
Yeah.
So it's just different random seasons of the challenge all over again. Which, sidebar, do you remember Much Music, bro?
Yeah.
Much Music, literally at one point during the break, I looked and it was just ridiculousness on repeat for like 36 hours. Like I just gave up scrolling ahead on the guide to be like, wait, how many ridiculousness episodes can you possibly show in a row? And I went like 48 hours in advance and it was still ridiculousness episodes. Much Music, that's sad. Much Music is like my childhood. Sorry for our Canadian or our American listeners. Much Music was like the Canadian version of MTV. It's a staple. It's like
But
it's
it
like our
had
thing as
it had
yeah,
it had its own feel too. Like it wasn't like just a straight like sometimes
exactly.
we have cultural products in Canada that are very much based on American or British
Mhm.
television products, but like Much Music was very much its own thing. I'll tell
Correct.
you, you're not young and hip like me, so you're not on the TikTok, but Much Music has TikTok,
They do, yes.
and like even that, and like it's explicitly about music news, which is good, and like
Mhm.
talking about like top five dead or alive stuff like that. But
Mhm.
like guys on the main channel, just get back to showing music videos. Like I don't understand why it's a business model that they think doesn't work. Like I don't get it. I mean, YouTube is essentially that, so like why can't you do that on TV? Anyway,
Yeah,
I
sorry.
also
I don't even remember where I was going with this. Oh yeah, LT messaged me
that's
because the
right.
PBRs was messed up. Sorry, tangent. It's early in the morning. We're obviously we're off to a rousing start here.
Oh, I've
And
got more on this tangent. You finish your thought
so
about LT, and then I've got more to say about Canadian television.
so I go to the guide and you click over and there's a random, like I think it was like Double Agents was on or something. So you go to your PVR is messed up. It shows you that it jumps from episode 11 to episode 13, but when you go to episode 13 it says already watched, which is impossible, and then you click on it and it's actually episode 12. No idea how that happened. No idea why that happened, but that's a scenario we were in. So scrolled ahead on the guide to, I think it was like a 2 a.m. airing, which said it was the actual episode. So I recorded that and I was able to watch that. Now I will pass it over to you to understand your experience, my friend.
Sheldon texted me to give me the heads up about this issue. I tried to record the 2 a.m. one, and it still didn't work for me. So
Oh,
I had to wait until this morning, Friday morning, which was the like they I guess rebooted the system because I was able to get it on demand, but like we couldn't get it on demand. We couldn't get it on PVR. Normally they posted on mtv.ca, wasn't there. So thank you everyone for your patience, for giving us an extra day on this. I do also have to say that like because I watched it on demand and not on my PVR, I couldn't skip ads as I normally do.
uh,
But
yes.
also, there's only one ad per commercial break, which is fine, right? Like
Mhm.
I can tolerate 30 seconds or whatever. But I have to tell you, it was for 911 Lone Star every time. And I'm never gonna watch
Oh.
911 Lone Star, but that has to be the most unhinged show on television.
So
Like
I
this week, it's there's a tornado at like a fairgrounds, and they
It's a Rob
show
Lowe one, right?
yeah, it's the Rob Lowe show, and Jessica from Suits. But
Yes.
they've
Shouts
got
to Suits.
shout out to Suits and former our fellow Northerner Pat Adams.
Yes.
But they had in it. There's like a porta potty that gets picked up by the wind, I guess, and like thrown at a Ferris wheel. As far as I can tell, on 911 Lone Star, first of all, they never fight fires, which like should be entertaining enough. But like the firefighters are never fighting fires. And also, like, what is happening down in Texas, allegedly, that this is what the world is like? Like, every single disaster is more ridiculous. Didn't they have aliens touch down on an episode? Like, what is happening on that show?
I've never seen it. Can't say that I've seen it. I've just seen it through the promos like you. That's about as far as I'll go. Yeah. I don't think I'll ever get to an actual episode. But yeah, I'm with
Man,
you.
I don't know. In Canada, these are all CTV products. I don't know. I don't know what's going on at CTV. They also just like
Well, they're just piggybacking whatever is on CBS or whatever, right? Whatever CBS shows.
yeah,
Or
but like on MTV Canada, when they're not showing ridiculousness or like a single episode of the challenge, they're typically showing Corner Gas or Corner Gas animated. And like I'm a big Corner Gas guy. I know you are too, but like no one needs to see that. Like that show was canceled a decade ago. And then they made an animated version of it for some reason. But like
because it's cheaper Canadian content. That's why they decided to do that.
I guess I don't think we need to visit what's happening in Dog River, Saskatchewan that badly.
You know what I want to get back to watching though? Did you ever watch Working Moms?
No, I've heard that's really good though.
It's a really funny show. Really funny
Nice.
show. CBC. CanCon.
I've heard good things about Run the Burbs as well.
Haven't seen that one. Haven't seen
Apparently
that one.
it's super funny. Shout out to
And
Julie
and that
Nolte.
and that wraps up this edition of What's New on Canadian TV.
I just hope that we have at least one American listener that's like, I'm gonna check out what this Corner Gas is about.
No, there's one American listener that's like, I watched Degrassi.
Check
That's
out Run
about
the
it.
Burbs or Working Moms or maybe
Yes.
Corner Gas. Corner Gas, I think gets a bad
No,
rep.
don't like, come on, man. I will not be out here co-signing a recommendation of Corner Gas. Come on, man. No.
That's so
I'm just gonna stick to Degrassi, okay, as my Canadian content recommendation.
and Much Music if it comes back.
I think that's done. What's not done though? We got some comments. We got some comments from our listeners, from our viewers, which might be the last time we get comments after this intro to this podcast. But again, if you're watching this video, if you're listening to this video, bless us with the like, bless us with the retweet, all that fun stuff. We do see the comments. We do read the comments. We appreciate the comments. So thank you. This from Sarah. Sarah says, late to the game this week, but just wanted to answer a question about eliminations. Justin Booth was interviewed. Oh, sorry, for people that might not remember. A couple weeks ago, we were talking about, I wondered aloud, do we think that MTV plots out the eliminations based on who's in said eliminations? Because we were talking about the fact that that last elimination obviously was geared towards Fessy. So Sarah chimes in and shouts to Sarah, longtime listener, always writing in, always following the pod. One of our You Killed It Ride or Dies. Sarah says, Justin Booth was interviewed and asked about production picking eliminations based on who was going in. And he said that too much goes into the production of most elimination setups to make last minute changes like that, and that all eliminations are scheduled ahead of time. He also said that since a lot of the matchups are determined more than last minute these days, it'd be fairly impossible for them to try to plan a certain matchup. Granted, he could be lying, but that's what he claimed.
I mean,
think that does track. Like, that is, a lot of these things are elaborate setups.
yeah.
Right. So I do
like,
understand that.
Even like this week's daily, as they did like a pan drone shot, and I was like, this has been in the works for a while, and like these were
Mhm.
relatively simple ones, but like someone like took a mower and like cleared out land. Like it's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
yeah, it makes sense. And also, I imagine that for these sets, they have a warehouse somewhere in Argentina that's holding
Mhm.
all of them. You know what I mean? Like they
Definitely.
definitely hired some subcontractor in Argentina to build these sets and have them in storage somewhere. So it does track.
Yeah. No, definitely. Definitely. Um, Also, too, hold on. I think there was another comment here. Uh, Rachela Valdez says this Tori and Jordan drama is too much. Just ignore each other like exes do. I like that.
I like that too. And that is the correct way. I will say also we had a comment. Oh, I'm gonna save it for later. It's a mid episode comment.
All right. Well, let's get to this episode then, right?
Yeah.
Because as we start, your man's Fessy Fess. I've never called him that before. Don't know what led to me calling him that now, but let's roll with it. Fessy's talking about why maybe the other team would stop targeting him and target bananas instead. To me, that is a bananas idea. Why would I would assume that they think they could beat bananas more than they could beat Fessy, no?
I think Fessy is missing the point entirely. Uh,
Correct.
I think it was about targeting him and Nelson,
Correct.
and just everyone knows like Nelson had made it clear that he and Fessy were working in tandem.
Mhm.
So it was about getting rid of one of them. And like I don't want to say they cared. Like I think everyone would have preferred to see Fessy lose.
Mhm.
I think that was abundantly clear. But I think they just wanted one of them to go, and it didn't particularly matter who, right? Like
Yeah.
they're just trying to get rid of someone. And like also, Fessy, wait till the next men's elimination. They'll put up you and bananas. Like like it's not all about you, bro.
Well, you said that it didn't really matter who. I was kind of surprised that it didn't really matter who to one Olivia, who
Yeah.
Fessy says, so sorry that I had to do that, but it's either me or him. And Olivia says, it's okay. Either way, it was going to be one of you, and I'm glad you're back because we need you. And I'm like, hold on a second here. Wasn't Nelson your man's? What's going on here? What am I missing? Did she just
No.
forget about him already? Like, all right, deuces, Nelson. What's going on here?
She's probably relieved to not have to speak to him for a while. Like there's
Wow.
only so many times you have to like correct someone's grammar or
Wow.
pronunciation.
Too much
Um
Nelson slander.
is whoa. Did you just
For
say
this
too much
season,
Nelson slander?
for this season,
Number one Nelson defender, Sheldon Alexander,
wow.
clocking in.
So
um, do you know? So I don't know how deep we want to dive on this, but I had a lot of issues with this scene, sort of in the like mess hall situation, where Johnny Bananas, who is romantically or sexually entangled with Mariah, immediately throws her under the bus to Fessy to be like, Mariah, I can't believe you burned your vote. And then just was like, anyway, deal with this now. Like, what was that about?
it's classic Johnny Bananas making TV, man. It's what he does. He just makes TV. He's a producer on the show.
If
He knows this conversation needs to go down and he's going to stir the pot to get it started.
I, man, if I were Mariah, I would be pissed. Like, sleeping on separate bunks that night, at least
Yeah.
for sure. Like, get out of here with that. And then Fessy goes in on her for burn voting. And I have to tell you, this annoyed me all episode because the proper grammar is burning a vote. Like burn is also a verb, Fessy. So you
You can,
don't vote is the noun. You don't put it but all episode it drove me nuts.
because you're a writer by
I'm
trade. Like, of course, it's going to annoy you. And it should annoy us all. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to get on the old man soapbox here. Yeah, it should annoy us all.
Thank you, Sheldon. But also, I don't think he really has a leg to stand on. And I say that because of what you said last week, and you're exactly right. He said to her last week, "Don't vote for me. Don't vote for Nelson."
Correct.
She listened to what her ride or die said. She listened to her more experienced ride or die.
Correct.
And now he's mad at her for, and I'm doing air quotes, burn voting, when also it all worked out for him. Like, he's still in the game.
Fessy Fess, man. He's a character. He's definitely a character. And also, too, an interesting part is they've never actually cleared up whether or not what Mariah was talking about is in fact correct. Like, what would have happened if the votes were tied up?
Yep.
So I'm interested to see how that plays out going forward, if that's a scenario that pops up where we get a tied vote. What I'm not interested in seeing anymore is Jordan and Tori arguing. I'm just over it. Don't need to see it. The whole point is Tori claiming that she put her neck out for Jordan first, which I think there's a big difference between Tori saying, hey, like, even if this is true, right? And let's say Fessy and them didn't put in Jordan or nominate Jordan as a direct vote. And let's say they didn't do that because of Tori, let's just say. That is not equal to Tori then wanting to save Fessy. Those are not the same things, right? The same things would be if Jordan was then trying to not save Tori.
Yep.
Tori, Jordan, Jordan, Tori, not Jordan, Tori, and then Jordan Fessy. It's two different things, in my opinion. But overall, just I'm over it.
I did have two things I want to say on this. Then maybe we'll try not to dwell as best we can, because this is clearly going to be the main plot line of the season. The first is that it occurred to me in this episode, because Fessy comes at Jordan in the dining hall again at the prompting of Johnny Bananas to say,
Jordan, were your ears burning?
Yeah, to say, I thought you were a man of your word. And I actually think that might be the key issue. I think that Jordan is a man of his word, typically. And I think he committed to sort of helping Fessy out. And then he realized it was a mistake. And then Toria approached him. And he was like, oh, like, this is my way out. Like, this is my way. Here's how I can break my word and still, like, assume that posture of, like, having integrity.
Yeah.
Because it remains the truth. He should have never agreed to that with Fessy. And, like, it's still beyond me as to why he did. Right? Like,
totally.
Especially he'd had conversations about it with Devin. They were on the same page. This was the play. Even if there wasn't, like, the personal aspect, it, like, is the most logical choice to put in. Like, he didn't need to agree to that, and there was no advantage to agreeing it. And I think that when Tori made her approach, it just gave him an excuse to go back on his word, which is what he's looking for. And the second thing I wanted to say, I still don't understand why Tori was looking to protect Fessy. Like, that still hasn't been explained to us, right? As I said last week, this was Devin, her ride or die's work, right? And, like, Devin, Tori, Jordan, and Anissa had been working really well in tandem for most of the season. I don't understand why suddenly they're not on the same page. And it's weird that having such outspoken people like Jordan, Tori, Anissa, and Devin, no one has said, like, either, like, in Confessional or even on Twitter, how they suddenly weren't seeing eye to eye on what to do.
Yeah, it was definitely a weird one. I just am over it all. And I think that the back and forth, like Tori, I really think has done a good job in inserting herself as or producing the show, we'll say, much like Johnny Bananas. And, you know, in one fail in one episode early, we have her talking about Fessy as if he's not even a real human being.
Yeah.
And then now all of a sudden, super upset because she couldn't save Fessy from going into elimination. So I don't know. I don't get Tori. I don't understand what's going on. Whatever. Um, am I just like salty? Because the next thing I was gonna go to here was Amber and Chauncey. And when this scene started, when they're calling home, at first I was like, okay, yeah, we get it. But then it made me think, oh, wait, does this mean Amber could be going home? Because normally one of these scenes is a setup for who's
Yeah.
going home.
I also got excited at that prospect. I'll tell I'll tell you where I'm at with Amber and Chauncey.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my entire note. Amber calls home. I struggle to stay awake. And then the rest of the scene, I didn't note anything down.
It's fair. Yeah. And I mean, Casey and Nani talking about it being Nani's mom's birthday. And I thought it was being very blatantly set up for an Amber versus Nani elimination. So
Yeah.
I would like to give the producers credit for throwing me a changeup. I was out on my front foot swinging, thinking it was a fastball, waiting on the fastball, but instead it was a changeup. Anyways, next challenge, blind faith. Having faith in your teammates. Basically, there's 4 challenges. You have to nominate people for each event. The team to complete all 4 events in the shortest time win. Now, the first challenge ended up being Jordan versus Fessy. And this was really the main point of this whole episode that I don't really feel like got enough attention in said episode because it's Fessy versus Jordan.
Yeah.
And we can spend some time here because first off, as soon as Jordan says he's going in, Fessy's like, "Oh, I'm going in." So I find that weird because like, what is this? Like, this isn't like some wrestling competition. This isn't some elimination. You just are so excited to go head to head. Who is it that said ego, 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 ego?
Unfortunately,
Someone's
it's Amber.
yes. That might be the name of this episode. Not sure yet. So it's target practice. You have like a slingshot thing. You got to hit a target that's what, like 30 feet away or something? It's pretty far distance. But for everyone that you miss, you have to drink something gross. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but did they ever mention what it was that they were
No.
drinking?
No.
Is that
It
weird to you?
it is because it had such an immediate reaction on both of them. Like,
So why do you think that was?
I mean, does it have like some ipecac in it or like something that like induces vomiting?
Oh.
Because like they couldn't even get through the shot and they were vomiting. Like it was so quick
Mm-hmm.
and yet also safe enough to have them drink it repeatedly. I don't
This is
understand.
what I was going to say. Maybe it wasn't something that was safe enough to have them actually drink, and for legal purposes, they had to take it out because it's weird that they would not mention what it was. And I'm sure one of our listeners is probably, maybe on one of the interview episodes or something, someone mentioned what it actually was. So if you do find out that information, feel free to let us know. Let the You Killed It community know. But yeah, I found that part weird. Now, they're both struggling horribly off the beginning, right? They can't find the target at all. They're both taking shots of whatever that concoction is and vomiting profusely. The one thing that I would say that sucked from a production standpoint from my standpoint, we had all these cameras showing close up vomiting. I wanted to see how close they were to actually hitting the target.
Yeah.
And I never really got a good view of that really at all. But I had like 8 different angles of vomit. And it was like, okay, I get it. But I didn't really need to see the 8 different angles of vomit.
Yeah. I I immediately thought, so every time Fessy vomited, he was not facing the hard cam, like the
Mhm,
stationary camera that they had set up.
mhm.
And all I could think about was how in pro wrestling he would have gotten in so much trouble because they're always instructed like face the hard cam, like
Yeah, yeah,
face the right way. And I was like, I know he's suffering, but like production must be like, God damn it, Fessy, face us when you're vomiting.
yeah. Mhm. So this I found really strange. The whole Devin helping Jordan and figuring out, nope, this is how you got to angle it. He became his spotter essentially.
Yeah,
I didn't really understand how that was possible.
I don't either. But
Oh, okay.
but I
I
mean, I'm
thought you were
like,
just going to use this opportunity to be like, oh, Devin's the best. That's why you can do anything.
well, I mean, you have to admit he did whatever he was doing. It was effective. Like I don't understand how it works, but I think we can acknowledge that he was the difference maker.
Well, in a big way.
he just he just he tweeted yesterday, hate to
Mhm.
play Monday morning quarterback on myself, but definitely should have directed Fessy to shoot at Jordan's target just to see how many times he'd do it.
Yeah. Do you have his other tweet?
He had quite a few tweets.
Well, he says, y'all listen, I asked my entire team if I should help Fessy multiple times. The only member to say no was Horatio. Every other team member, including all three women, said help him multiple times before I reluctantly helped him. I would have loved to watch him fail. I think that is putting the blame, spreading the blame around when no, it's just your fault. So
Uh,
Jordan's out to an early lead. Jordan ends up finishing, and this is a timed event. So the longer it takes the other team to complete, the better it is for you in the daily challenge. And for some reason, this we decide, hey, we're gonna help the other team.
I mean,
What?
you could on the episode you can hear them tell Devin to do it. And you specifically you hear Tori to do it. Tori told him to do it. Granted, she was on the other team, but he also later tweeted that he took the ride or die aspect of this more seriously than most people.
Mhm.
I I think I would have given it another 10 minutes of him suffering. But also, I mean, they had like a 22-minute lead.
Not the point. It's the first part. We'll get to this, but
Yeah.
it's the first part of the daily challenge. You have no idea what's coming up next. You might need that extra 10 minutes, that extra 5 minutes, whatever it is. It's the first part. It's not like it's near the end. It's literally the first part. You have no idea what's coming up next.
I did like what Lawrence Thomas tweeted at us. He said, "This is what I needed from Jordan to Fessy in that daily challenge." And he has the Emperor shouting from Gladiator, like Joaquin
Oh.
Phoenix, "Am I
Mhm,
not merciful?"
mhm, mhm.
Which, like, I love that energy, LT. But I got to point it out, it's not like Jordan was crushing it, despite saying that he's good at shooting basically anything that there is. It was Devin that won this competition, this particular quarter of the competition for both of them.
And then he lost it.
And then, well, I don't know that he lost it. I think it falls on Jordan later on.
We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. So in the next part, phase two, right? You have to run, carry puzzle pieces from one end of the field to the next. It's Anissa and Olivia versus Devin and Nani. Um, so you have to run. You're carrying these huge puzzle pieces, and then you got to put the puzzle together at the other side. Obviously,
Mhm.
Olivia and Anissa end up winning this side of it, but their lead is still, the lead. They didn't really do much. It's still a 30-minute around, right? I'm rounding here. They're still down. At this point, okay, your point remains, cool. Doesn't really matter that Devin helped them out. Next up, a memory challenge. Now, you should have figured out at this point. Well, no. From the beginning, you should know that there's going to be different kinds of challenges. And if you think that, you're going to know that one of them's got to be a puzzle, and you might need all the extra time that you could possibly need for that. So, for the memory one, 300-foot course, you have to race. You go to the answer key, then the other partner races back, relays what the puzzle or like the answer key says, the order of all the different pieces, and then that partner has to race back and put it together. This matchup, Tori and Bananas versus Horatio and Amber, and I think it was pretty obvious to me, anyways, that Amber and Horatio were going to win this one, right? Like, this is not a strong suit of Bananas and Tori. Did you think that?
I thought that Bananas was going to carry the day. I mean, I loved this was almost my line of the episode, but when Tori said, "I'm not the brightest bulb, but at least I'm a bulb," I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not my line of the episode; it's close.
Okay.
But I thought I'm like, you know what? Bananas is the smartest of these four people. He'll carry the day. Like Horacio is not dumb. He just cracks under pressure. So I was like, Bananas is going to win
Mm.
this. And then he did not. I was surprised with how well Amber and Horacio did. I was
Yeah.
surprised and impressed.
Yeah.
I wonder, how obvious do you think it is that you and I are all the way out on Amber and Chauncey? Like, you and I are so over those two.
Because I feel like, and I think it's important because we kind of do rip on them every episode. But I think the reason for me, anyways, is because to me, like the whole thing is just played up too much. It's like, we get it. You're in a relationship. Like, we
Yeah.
get it. But like every single episode, it's like slammed down our throats. And it's like, I don't care. Just show
Yeah.
me the challenge. Like, I don't need to hear how much you guys love each other and that you're thinking about getting married and starting a family. Like, I don't care. I really don't.
Like Rochella Valdez, as you said, tweeted at us about how she's over the Tori and Jordan drama.
Mhm.
And you said you're over it as well. I'm pretty over it, but I would rather get more Tori and Jordan drama
Hmm.
than Amber and Chauncey.
Hmm. It's a close one for me. It's a
Yeah.
close one. It's a close one. What else do we have next after this one? We had the last event. So it's Casey and Chauncey versus Jordan and Mariah. So you have a bungee cord attached. You both have to run out and both make it to a pole and hold on to the pole, you and your partner, while the bungee is pulling you. This is a very difficult challenge. And the one thing I got to say too, I feel like the teams did a good job in sort of figuring out who was going to go when.
Yeah.
Because I think this was a pretty good matchup. Now, the strategy to this, because there was a different strategy where, are you both going to try to run at the same time to get to the pole? Is one person going to go first and then the other person has to like drag and pull themselves? It really just comes down to what your pain tolerance is, essentially, right? Because obviously the bungee pulling you back, that's going to hurt. And it's going to hurt different people on different levels. And Mariah said that she still had like bleeding burns from the harness on her shoulders and inner thighs. Like the next,
Jesus.
like when she was doing the elimination, like she still had that from doing that daily challenge. So I don't know. That looked really, really hard. And I don't think that it actually translated just how hard that was.
I agree. I think it was super hard. And we've seen like this is sort of standby. Has Jordan done this before? I feel like he did it on one of the Battle of the X's
I don't remember.
with maybe Naya. Although no,
I
maybe
don't
not.
remember.
Naya definitely did it though. But and she was on his season of the Real World. But I'm gonna put something out there.
Mhm.
Jordan was not the guy to be doing this for that team. And I know like Jordan is very athletic. I think you and I give him lots of credit,
Mhm.
but Horacio is taller,
Yeah.
which is I think a benefit in this, and we saw that uh in terms of like being able to have length and like to grab onto your partner's ankle and
Mhm.
like sort of use them to pull yourself up.
Mhm.
And also like I know Horacio had just done the memory bit, and Jordan says in Confessional like, oh, he's run like several miles. I think maybe even Devin would have been better
Ooh, I don't know.
because I think Devin's taller than Jordan. Don't get me wrong. Devin is the worst athlete of the three guys on that team. Like
Mhm.
I like him, but I'm not delusional. But I, but Jordan is so lean that like I don't know that necessarily like I think weight plays a role, and I think his lightness might have actually harmed them a little.
Mhm.
What it really came down to, like the critical moment, was that they were. I mean, the production made it look like they were seconds away, but they were sort of following Casey and Chauncey's lead, where Chauncey had grabbed Casey's ankle and pulled himself up using her body. And Jordan started to do that, and Mariah's hands slipped. And
Yeah.
that was all she wrote.
Yeah, I think like the other side of this might just be that Casey and Chauncey are just beasts,
Oh,
right?
for
Like
sure.
they, you know, I don't know how many people would have been able to actually do this.
No, and also to your point, like I think what it really amounts to is Casey has better grip strength than Mariah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like of course she does. Like Casey's the most athletic woman, or she's the strongest woman. I don't know that she's the most athletic. I do actually think Amber is quite athletic. Like she's, I think, a fantastic long distance runner.
Mhm.
But for like a strength, like grip strength kind of competition, I think that really played to Casey's strong suit.
Yeah.
And I think Chauncey is also built for this in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
But man, that has to be like, I mean, I think it's the closest um, daily competition we've seen this season.
Yeah. And I think the drama of it was really cool too, how it played out in terms of the countdown clock and knowing that, hey, this is the lead that you guys have. You have to get this done by blank. And Jordan just couldn't do it. I thought
Mm.
that was really tough. And I thought if you look at how that played out, I wonder at what point they realized that they screwed themselves. You know what I mean? Like when
Yeah,
they realized, oh no, we're in trouble. Like we're not close to getting this. We're not able to figure this out. And now the clock's ticking. And wait, we could actually lose this?
I think that as like at one point, I think what Casey and Chauncey did that was smart was they ran most of the way together at the same time,
Mhm.
and then Jordan and Mariah tried that as well. And as soon as they gave up on doing that, I was like, oh, they're not gonna get this done. Like they're gonna
Yeah.
lose
Yeah.
because because fatigue is such a factor in this,
Mhm.
right? Like your hands get sore, your legs get tired. Because fatigue was such a factor, like time's not on your side, right? Like you got to get it done as quick as possible before you burn out,
Yeah. And
and like
so,
it's all downhill from there.
oh, yeah. And as you mentioned, Chauncey and Casey end up winning. Their team ends up winning. And now going from having this massive, massive lead, Team Mariah now finds themselves in trouble. Mariah finds herself in trouble as the rookie. And you kind of knew how this was going to play out, right? Like we get a scene where Chauncey is now sad because obviously he won, but that means that his girl Amber might be going in now and he's sad. And these are the scenes of where I was like, is my guy actually crying or fake crying? And I don't really know which one would be worse
I think
in
he
this
was
moment,
actually crying.
but I don't know which. Again, like I'm
I
not.
think that is worse. I think
I'm
that
not.
is actually worse. I mean, one of the reasons why I dislike Amber and Chauncey so much
It's
is that
doing too much.
they're both doing too much. There's always something. Like it's
Mhm.
never just like, oh yeah, this like put it this way. Did you see Nani and Casey having a scene like that? Like Casey was equally culpable in putting Nani in like the line of fire. I think I don't think I took a note on it, but like they spoke about it, but like there was no crying. There was just like, man, it sucks, but like, hey, at least one of us might win. Like
Yeah, the game is a game, right? The game is a game.
it's gotta
We
move
get
not forward, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we get to the deliberation, and it's pretty straightforward. I mean, Nani was very political. Amber makes a pitch about how you should go against the rookie and just send the rookie in, and Mariah is the rookie, and she is essentially done. The way that the votes played out, not really surprising, right? The votes end up going towards Mariah. She is sent directly into the elimination, which means the knives end up being between Amber and Nani, right? And I honestly thought, without knowing what the elimination was, I was kind of like, well, I think Mariah can beat either one of these two. But then everything kind of slows down because Amber gets the first choice of pulling the knife, trying to find which is a safe night. And Amber says, "Are you sure? Are you sure you want me to go first?" And she's doing the most. This is again why we get so annoyed with Amber and Chauncey. Everything is so dramatic. It's like you're supposed to go first. Just go and pick the knife. She
It's a
doesn't know which one to
50-50
pick.
shot. It's nothing personal.
Yeah.
Like, I don't wanna say the stakes are low because that's not true, but, like, there's no pressure on you. You just make a choice and you do it, right? Like, have some agency in your life. Don't be the center of attention, right? You might be the center of attention if you pull the wrong dagger, but just pull the dagger. We don't need all this, which brings me
Well,
to my
she's
line of
doing
the
back and
episode.
forth. She's going back and forth. She's like,
She
I don't know
started to
which one to
cry.
do.
Sheldon,
Yeah.
she cried. How do Amber and Chauncey stay hydrated with all those tears? Like it's ridiculous.
Gatorade, a lot of electrolytes. That's what I'm going with. But I mean, I don't know. I find the whole thing super strange. At the end of the day, I look at it and I think that Amber is just doing the most all the time. And that might have been her most doing the most moment of the
Well,
season.
this brings me to my line of the episode, which something tells me is your line of the episode as well.
That is correct.
Anissa in Confessional. And like you see Anissa watching all this, sort of like not quite roll her eyes, but like she looked exasperated.
She's representing every single person that is at home watching this episode that is not that doesn't have the same last name as Amber.
Anissa says, the best dramatic performance in a draw. The award goes to Amber. And like honestly, like holy shit, like come on.
Mhm. It
Like
was the worst. The worst. The worst. And anyone that's gonna like defend Amber, I get it, but it's just she always we've seen her on these shows multiple times now, and I still don't know if I can say we have an idea of who Amber really is. I feel like everything is so put on and everything is so phony, everything is so fake. I don't know who this person actually is. That's just my opinion. But
I mean,
also,
I
Amber
just
pulls the dagger.
sorry, it's just I want to say on Amber, I would be exhausted having her in my real life. And like I think we've all had coworkers like her, friends like her, classmates like her. We're just like everything is a drama and just like I couldn't stand it in real life. Like you and I always talk about how, would we have a beer with this person? I would not have a beer with Amber. If I showed up at a party and she was there, I would at the best stay in another room. Like I would keep her, like if she entered the room, I would leave. Like it would be too much for me to bear. I can't handle it.
There's so much that I want to say that I'm like tiptoeing around, so I'm just not going to say it at all. But
Okay.
yes, I'll say that I agree with you.
Right.
Amber ends up pulling the dagger, and she pulls the safe dagger. So we got Mariah versus Nani, and this is called, what is this one called? I Can
I
See.
Can See.
So you have a harness attached to your back. As you run further away in the sand, you're able to pull a wall up into the sky. And you can see scrambled letters. You then have to find those letters and spell a word. You do that faster than your partner, or sorry, faster than your opponent, you win. I don't know why TJ's wife showed up. I thought there was going to be an explanation for it that never really came, but cool. Hello, Mrs. TJ. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you.
Roxanne. Cool. Roxanne Lavin.
Yeah. Shouts to you, Roxanne Lavin. So this, you have to spell these words. How easy do you think this was? First, two, what did you think of, because TJ made a comment earlier because he said that the difference in the game was the strategy they used. Nani would spell the word out while looking at the scrambled wall. Mariah would see the letters on the scrambled wall, find the scrambled letters, put them up, and then try to spell the word. Do you think that she had the wrong strategy?
I think they both had elements that they were doing right and elements that they were doing wrong.
Okay.
The first thing I'll say that immediately occurred to me when I saw this was, wouldn't you do the top word first? Because
I assume maybe they had to go in a different order. I don't know.
I mean, maybe they were instructed, like, you got to work your way up from the bottom to the top. But if no one directed me to do that, I'd start at the top word when I'm strongest and have the most energy. And then it gets easier because you're like not lifting the wall as far each time. Right.
Yep.
And also you're seeing the other words. So like you're thinking about it. You know what I mean? Like you've got time to sort of like noodle on them while you're doing the pressing one.
Definitely makes sense. Yep.
I kind of thought Mariah's strategy was smart. Like why exhaust yourself?
True.
But her problem, we saw it on the final word, was that she didn't remember every letter every time. So then she'd have to go back, and that's wasted motion.
Mm-hmm.
So she also, something that Nani did that I thought was smarter was she put all her letters on the board, whereas Mariah had them in the sand. And Mariah lost precious time looking for the C in companion. So I don't know. I was sort of torn on all this.
Yeah, it was super tough. And it was actually ended up being really, really, really close.
As
and
close
the
as
words,
can be.
Yeah. And once you realize that the words all were something, and it's always something, right? Where the words are very close to something that has to do with the challenge, right?
Yeah, Nani announced like proudly in Confessional, being like, "Yeah, I quickly realized that all the words have to do with like ride or dies and like the theme of the show." I was like, "That's not a huge revelation,
Yeah,
Nani. That's what they
always.
do every season in every competition." Like, I appreciate that like someone had to say it to explain it to like for the sake of narration, but like the way she said it, I'm like, is she sincere? Like, is this news to her?
Yeah, it is quite strange. Yeah, this ends up coming right down to the wire, and this might be one of the crazier finishes that we've seen in an elimination, because right at the very end, it appears that they solve the last word right at the same time. Nani appears to say right away, check, check, check first, but then Mariah actually hits the buzzer first. And that builds some confusion, but then Mariah realizes that she spelt the word devotion wrong. And then Nani wins. Is it wrong that I wanted Nani to lose?
No, I actually noticed the same thing about myself. Where like when it came down to that moment, I felt in my heart of hearts like I'm rooting for Mariah. I want Mariah to win here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was genuinely surprised that like that's who I was rocking with.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I used to really like Nani, and I wouldn't say I dislike her. And I know a lot of people are rooting for her because she's never won a season. She just lost her mom. This is not to put down Nani. I guess I'm just like bored of her. I
Yeah,
guess
no, totally. Like,
she's been on
so
too many seasons.
we'll remove, the whole factor of course, it'd be great for her to win for her mom, right? Like,
Yeah,
we
of
all
course.
agree, universally, everybody agrees with that. If we try to separate that aspect from the overall game of the challenge, Nani, for me, like, you're right. We've seen it so many times where she floats through seasons. She always ends up losing at some point. She only goes into eliminations against rookies, or she only beats rookies in eliminations for the
Mhm.
most part. I'm sure there's probably, some part where she beat someone who's not a rookie, but I'm saying most of her seasons end up playing out the same. She floats through most of the season, never has to go in against anyone. And the moment that she does, she loses, beats rookies in eliminations. And then the Casey relationship thing is so boring.
Yeah.
Nani, at least, I mentioned this before, but one of my boys at work, C Brown's been watching all the old episodes of the challenge. And one of the things that he's been saying, he's like, yo, that's Nani. Like, and it's hard to remember how different some of these people used to be on the show if
Yeah.
you go back like 10, 12 years. But like Nani used to be, you know, a menace in the house, we'll say. She was doing
Mhm.
a lot in the house, let's say. And now it's kind of really boring and super low key. And it's just like she's just there filling a spot, trying to play out the string. She's like Karl Malone and Gary Payton joining the Lakers, trying to just jump on the Kobe and Shaq bandwagon at the end of their careers to win a ring.
You know
And that
what?
doesn't really work. That's kind of boring.
I'll take it a step further. CT is in a lot of ways like Nani,
Mhm.
right? They were both wild
Yeah.
in their earlier seasons of the challenge, right?
Mhm.
CT is pretty boring on the challenge now.
Mhm.
What makes him exciting is that he is still a freak of nature. Like he
Mhm.
is still arguably the best athlete on this show. Even though he's like closing in on 40, like he is otherworldly.
Well,
And Nani's not. So like they're both boring and like I applaud them both and it's nice to see that they've like grown as people. But the thing about CT is at least we still have that element of like, wow, like I can't wait to see CT in the final because he's still like a freak of nature. Like he's still going to like do you remember in War of the Worlds 2, I want to say, where they had that team competition in the final and they like passed the other team and the other team was carrying like that board with like all the weights on it and
mhm.
CT pushed them all over with one
Mhm.
hand without
Yeah.
breaking a stride. Like that keeps CT spicy. Nani's not pushing anyone over, right? Like Nani is not doesn't have that freak element, so she's just sort of there. I'm going to have a hot take for someone who's going to be turning 40 this year. I don't think I want to watch people over the age of 35 on this show.
Hmm.
Like I was as much as I find like again applaud that CT and Nani and Darrell and Veronica uh, are on the show, but they've like sort of become boring because they're mature adults now.
Mhm.
I also get annoyed when I see Bananas stirring up shit like he was earlier this episode because I'm like, you're 40, bro. Like you should know better. Like be the adult in the room. You know what I mean? And I think that being a mature person in your mid to late 30s, early 40s makes for bad reality TV. Like, give me people in their 20s still making mistakes. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Interesting. Yeah.
Like,
I
that's
like
what it
that.
spices. That's the reality TV juice.
Interesting. So you're not into the Real Housewives of Orange County or
Oh,
whatever.
oh, how dare you? First of all, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, season 2, just last season, one of the best reality TV shows of all time.
What
Just
did I
like
just do? What
killer.
what did I
But
just do?
But significantly, I think It's the contrast of like being
No.
around younger people that is
Mhm.
painful,
I got
right?
you.
And also those those women are so messy on the Real Housewives shows. They're so
Why did
messy.
I do this? Why-
They're getting drunk, they're having affairs, they're getting in fights over nothing. That's the thing. Like Nani used to do that, but she doesn't do that anymore.
Mhm.
So like right off into the sunset. Like Leroy. Leroy and Cam have had a kid. Congratulations. It's wonderful. Don't be on reality TV anymore. You have to be an adult now.
Jenna and Zach.
Yeah. So that's my rant. But like maybe that makes me an old man as well, that I don't want to watch old men anymore. But like let's
So another thing about this elimination that I wondered aloud was, did the people help? And so I actually like searched Twitter to see if anyone mentioned that. And Mariah said the funny thing about this elimination was that they weren't supposed to help, but Casey helped Nani. Jordan said, "Really?" And then started helping her.
hmm.
She also says that was literally the hardest thing she's ever done. I had bleeding burns from the harness on my shoulders and inner thighs.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Intriguing.
some insight there.
That's good insight. So as we said, Nani wins because Mariah misspelled devotion. Mariah was done first.
Mhm.
I think Mariah's great, and I'd love for her to come back, not just on this season. I know she's sort of not eliminated. I mean, like,
Yeah,
come
yeah,
back
yeah.
on future seasons. I'd like to see Mariah come back without the ball and chain of Fessel slowing her down and like messing up her game. Like, I'd love to see a season of the challenge without Fessel to see like what kind of trouble or success Mariah has. Because like she was trying to be a good friend to him by and large, and he kind of constantly messed up her game. Um, so we've already established our line of the episode. I have to ask you, Sheldon, who killed it for you this week?
Um,
Your MVP.
it's a LVP. It's Mariah's whole team. It's Devin for helping Fessy. You played yourself. That's an LVP. If I've ever seen an LVP, that is just the worst move. Terrible, terrible, terrible strategy by a team that is claiming themselves to be underdogs, that have been losing week in, week out consistently. You finally get a win, and maybe that like clouded their brains, clouded their judgment, had them feeling a little too good about their position now. Like, oh, well, we win. We're in a good spot. We can afford to help the other team in a timed challenge. That makes no sense at all. That was one of the dumbest moves in the history of the challenge. Because here's the thing again, let's recap this. It's a timed event. You don't know what the next events are going to be. So time is of the essence. If Bessie wants to sit there and throw up for the next 2 hours and miss targets, let him do that. Let him max out his time. But under no circumstances are you, as the underdog team that has been struggling to get wins, going to sit there and decide, you know what? Let's help this guy out. Let's help him finish. Deserve to lose, deserve to hold that L. And Mariah, I guess maybe it's fitting as the leader of the team, like it's her team. It's fitting that she's holding the L. It only would have been more fitting if it was your man's Devin.
Wow.
LVP performance.
Wow. I'll tell you, I have an MVP, which I know is maybe a little bit off the board, but I'm going with Anissa because Anissa had two of the best lines of the episode. We didn't touch on it, but she said at one point during one of Tori and Jordan's many fights, she said, just apologize to each other and then promise to not talk to each other for the rest of the season. Like, that's Tori's best friend. Like, Anissa was just speaking for all of us. And I think it's really important to have that, like, person of the people. And then when she made fun of Amber for doing the most
Mhm.
at the dagger pull, I was like, yes, Anissa. And Anissa held up her end of the bargain on the team. She performed well with the puzzle. She was just telling Olivia what to do, which like
Mhm.
I love. So shout out to Anissa. She was my MVP. Where can the good people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Shell Alexander, on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. And huge shouts to everyone liking and subscribing to the pod. We appreciate y'all.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hill. And until next week, this was You Killed It.
You killed it.